Hello and welcome to Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast with me, Matthew, and as always, I am joined with...
Hello, it's Scott, and Happy New Year.
Yes, indeed. Happy New Year. This is our first proper episode of the year of 2024, not counting the Christmas special that came out. Because we recorded that before the new year. So this is our first proper episode of 2024.
Yeah,
welcome to the future.
Hopefully you enjoyed us playing the best Doctor Who game of all time.
Edge of Reality. Yes, I loved it. And by that, I of course mean really, really loved it. It's great. It's so good.
More like Edge of my bin, huh? Because it's so bad.
That was shit. That was shit.
This is the kind of effort I'm putting into the podcast this year.
But this week we are dipping our toes back into Classic Who. It has been a while since we last did Classic Who. Remember, last year we were going through Doctor Who chronologically, which means we stopped looking at Classic Who in whatever fucking month
July?
is number 7.
July.
Yeah. Christ.
Half a year.
July. That's a long time ago since we did Classic Who. And so this week we are looking at the first two parts of City of Death, a Tom Baker story. We'll be looking at parts 3 and 4 next week. And this is our second Tom Baker story?
Third.
We've not done a lot of Tom Baker.
We've done
Third.
The Hand of
Is it our
Fear.
third?
We've done
Of course, the Hand of Fear. Yes,
Genesis of
I
the
was
Daleks,
forgetting the
and
Hand of Fear. No, yes, I was forgetting the Hand of Fear. Yes.
Technically,
Cool. So this is our
dimensions
third
in
Tom
time as
Baker.
well. So this is our fourth.
Yeah. I couldn't. Yeah, of course. Yeah, okay. What the fuck do I know? I know nothing. But this episode first aired on the 29th of September 1979, which was a Saturday, and at the time of recording, 4 years, 3 months, and 11 days ago. No, 4 years? Haha. 44 years, 3 months, and 11 days. Sorry, I can't even read. 44. Imagine if it was 4 years ago. 44 years ago, 3 months and 11 days at the time of recording was this episode. 44 odd years ago, a long time ago. Pope John St. Paul II becomes the first pope to visit Ireland on this day when this episode airs. He was the first pope to ever go to Ireland. He was the 264th pope.
Insane. That's insane.
It took a long time for the pope to go to Ireland. Also on this day, actress Isabella Rossellini marries director Martin Scorsese. This is his third wife. He has been married 5 times.
Damn.
I did not know that.
How many kids does he have?
Oh, that's a good question.
I know he
didn't
has
look up
that
how
one
many kids
kid that he does
has.
TikToks with, which is like the best
Yeah.
TikTok
Yeah.
content. Martin and his
He's
child.
He has got 3 children.
Oh, that's not bad.
3 children.
I was expecting like
Yeah,
57 or something, like a
Yeah,
Scream
yeah.
Jay Hawkins kind of situation here.
They weren't long marriages. His first marriage was 6 years. His second marriage was 1 year. The marriage after that was 3 years. The marriage after that was 6 years again. And then his latest wife, his wife now, Helen Morris, they've been married since 1999. So
Okay, that's
they
not
seem to be
bad.
happy.
That's not bad. How old is he?
Yeah.
Like 88.
Just-
he's nearly gone.
He's 81. He's 81.
That's
He's
not
81.
bad.
He's not as far gone as you think. He's got another decade maybe.
That's a whole. That's so young. He's so young.
Yeah. No, I like Scorsese. I haven't seen all of his movies, but the ones that I have seen, I really, really enjoy. Cool guy. Goodfellas, probably my favorite.
My favorite is The Joker.
Yeah. I don't remember the movie the Joker ripped off is called.
The King of
Comedian.
Comedy. That's a great movie.
King of Comedy. That's
And
it.
also
It
a
is
little bit of
amazing.
Taxi
It is
Driver.
genuinely amazing. Yeah, I say rip off. It was an homage.
Yeah.
At the time, Jimmy Carter was U.S. president. Currently the oldest living president. He is 99. This is his centennial year. He will be 100 this year if he makes it. I hope he does, because he's such a gem of a man, and he's done such amazing humanitarian work for someone that was not a popular president. He only served one term, but he's gone on to do such cool and amazing stuff. He's a cool guy. Love Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, he built a house last year with his bare hands, didn't he?
Yep. Yeah. He hasn't stopped. Like, he's a cool guy. And at the time in the UK, Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister. Not only that, Margaret Thatcher is your brand spanking new Prime Minister, having been elected to office on the 4th of May, 1979.
And
if only they knew.
The 4th of May was when the Doctor Who production team arrived back from Paris filming this episode. So,
oh wow!
So Tom Baker came back to the country in a whole new light.
Can you guess, Scott, what is number one at the box office this day in 1979? I know you remember 1979 well. I know it was one of the favorite years you've had on this earth, and you were in the cinema constantly. So I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Obviously you were in the cinema constantly in the United States, because that's the only statistics I have for this week. In 1979 in September.
I'm gonna guess.
It is a movie you know. It is a movie you know.
Oh, Despicable Me. You need to give me a hint. Alien? I don't know. Alien already came out, didn't it?
It's a comedy.
Alien.
It's a comedy.
It's a comedy. 1979.
It's a all-time classic.
Who's it directed by?
Ooh, that might give it away.
Oh.
Yeah, that might. Terry Jones.
Terry Jones. I honestly don't know.
Okay, it's British film.
Oh, the Life. Is it the Monty? No, it can't be a Monty Python film. Is it? I don't.
Why not? Why can't it be?
I don't know.
Why couldn't it be?
I don't know.
What's stopping it being a Monty Python film?
Is it a Monty Python film?
It might be.
Is it
You want to guess it?
Was it called The Life of Brian? Am I?
Yeah, it's
okay.
Life of Brian. Well done. You got
Family
there.
Guy.
That was painful.
Family Guy called an episode The Life of Brian, and I wasn't sure if I was mixing up the parody name. I wasn't sure if it was a parody name.
The Life of Brain. It was The Life of Brain. That was.
Which Monty Python reference very appropriate for this episode. You'll see why at the end of part 4. There might be a little cameo.
Tease for next week. Interesting. That's fun. Yeah. Have you seen Life of Brian?
No, I haven't.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. I would genuinely like Life of Brian. I think holds up really well. Very funny movie. Very good. I would stick that on your list for this year.
I'll put it on my letterboxd list the minute we finish recording, if I don't forget. But another Monty Python reference is of course Douglas Adams wrote for like the final season of Monty Python's Flying Circus, and he even starred in a few sketches. So that's another little reference in your back pocket there.
Yeah. Oh, in my back pocket. Look at that. And that is all I've got for On This Day, Scott. That is what was going on the 29th of September, 1979. Some marriages, and the Pope visited Ireland. And then everybody went and watched Monty Python's Life of Brian with the Pope. It seemed appropriate. Why don't you take us into the Writer's Corner segment for this episode?
So the original writer for this episode is David Fisher, but he didn't wind up being the the end writer, so we're not going too deep into him, but he wrote 2 stories before, and he got the job initially as he had worked with Anthony Reid before, who was the script editor on the season prior. Every time I write down Anthony Reid, I keep on writing Matthew Reid instead. Like, my brain is broken.
Why are you obsessed with me? What's wrong with you?
So the original episode was called The Gamble with Time, and the original brief given to David Fisher was to have a similar tone to the 1920s novel series Bulldog Drummond. Have you ever heard of Bulldog Drummond? I'd be.
I have never heard of. Bulldog
It would have been
Drummond.
insanely impressive if you have heard of this series. It ran from like the 1920s to the 1940s. It's about this like World War One soldier who's like after World War One, obviously, and he's getting really bored, so he decides to become an adventurer instead. Which basically
Amazing.
So yeah, just one of those kind of stories. James Bond is loosely inspired by him as well, so he's just a guy who goes around the globe punching people, I guess.
Incredible. Yeah, no, I have never ever heard of this dude.
The production
Drummond.
team wanted the villains to be similar to the Bulldog Drummond stories. For example, the villain in book number 1 is being paid by wealthy foreigners to organize a coup that will bring back it will bring communism to Britain. Can you tell this was written in 1920? A lot of 1920s politics.
Yeah.
Another book is about the villain producing artificial diamonds, which is very similar to the artificial paintings in this episode. So yeah, this was with the Bulldog Drummond angle in mind. The original location was going to be 1920s Monte Carlo, which would have been insane to watch in Doctor Who. I think we made the right choice going to France.
Yeah, for sure.
The time distortions would have been much bigger, like the Doctor hailing a taxi and being shocked it's from the 1970s instead of the 20s. So we have like modern taxis in 1920 streets, that kind of stuff, which was the original concept for Father's Day, like 30 years later. So that's interesting. Like the original concept for Father's Day had the Doctor and Rose going to like a 1980s pub to discover that it was full of like 1920s policemen or whatever. So it's that concept sounds fun, but I guess we already did it with the Wedding of River Song, like the whole time displaced people stuff.
Yeah, my mind's gone blank, so I agree.
There would have been a subplot where the villains would be affecting roulette tables at the casino as well as stealing artwork, but the gambling element was dropped just to simplify the story. It makes more sense to just focus on the whole Mona Lisa storyline here. David Fisher's...
Yeah, I also,
Yeah,
about that one, if I didn't read the episode description at all, before clicking on this episode, I just read the title, The City of Death, and then like it opens up on the alien planet with that like goobity guy. I would never have guessed in a million fucking years how important the Mona Lisa was to this story. Like,
I know, it's insane. Like, it is the main focus of the story, and you just would not believe it from the title or the opening.
It's very surprising.
So David Fisher still wound up getting 75% of the original fee, even though Fisher felt like he only deserved 35% of the fee, because he didn't. The end result isn't his at all. It's entirely different, but he still wound up getting 75%, which is pretty decent, I would say. Can't complain about that.
Yeah. No, that's pretty good. Yeah, I'd be happy.
So the main reason why the setting changed from 1920s to 1970s was once they realised Paris was possible to fly to, they wanted to shoot as much scenes of the Doctor and Romana on location as possible, and boy did they. They couldn't close down any streets or make it more era appropriate, so of course the decision was to make it 1970s Paris instead. And there is a lot of scenes in Paris. Like, that'd be impossible to make it appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. They really took advantage of being in Paris in this episode for both Probably the detriment of the episode pacing wise, but it's pretty. But yeah, it's cool. And also, I didn't even click it as being in modern day because it's no longer modern day. So
Yeah.
it's just they're in the past. Cool.
Oh god, what is this, like 45? Yeah, you said it at the top of the episode. 45 years ago almost.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
Heavy
Different worlds.
Heavy rewrites were needed just a month before we started shooting. A whole month before starting shooting. That's insane. But Douglas Fisher was in the middle of a huge divorce and also busy on other projects. So Graham Williams, who was the producer at the time, and Mr. Douglas Adams, who was the script editor, had to write the episodes for themselves. Douglas Adams was the main writer, and Graham Williams was the guy who was the editor. He was basically on the fly editor. So they worked together in a whole weekend, which is kind of insane. How good this episode is!
Yeah, it would have been
this episode is so good. It's not the best episode ever, I would say, but it's really good. It's really polished, I would say.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a solid episode. It's like, this is a really solid story. And I don't know how good season 17 is of Classic Who. Terrible. It's the worst season ever. Hate it. And, but this one's great.
The thing is, season 17 wasn't considered the best season. I think on the DVD there's a documentary where Stephen Moffat essentially says it's one of the worst seasons, but the Douglas Adams stories, which there's 3 of essentially, they are the best parts of the seasons. So he's a good writer, I would say. Hot take.
Yeah, I like Douglas Adams a lot. One of my favorites. Big inspiration for me. I love Douglas Adams.
Definitely talk about more Douglas Adams stuff next week. Douglas Adams says for this episode he had to be hosed down with coffee and whiskey. And they actually needed to write it under the pseudonym of David Agnew because of the fact that the producers couldn't write the stories under their own name because it wouldn't be fair to freelance writers.
Yeah.
And they could send in an application to have their own name on screen, but it would take a long time for the process to go through, and they just did not have time. Like, this was written in April and it was transmitted in September. It's like they just did not have the time to go through the process, so it wasn't needed.
Yeah, that's fair. Plus, Douglas Agnew's a fun name.
It is, yeah. This was the first time Doctor Who ever shot abroad, which is insane to think about because this is episode 510. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, that is crazy. God, there's too much fucking Classic Who. We're already on 500 episodes. It's still Tom Baker.
Yeah, I know. Whereas we haven't even hit 200 episodes and we've changed Doctors like 6 times now. Modern Who.
Yeah.
Insane. So John Nathan Turner was hanging around. He was the associate producer at the time. He would become the main producer the next season. And he was doing the accounting for this episode and realised it would only be £15 dearer for him to actually fly 3 cast members and a skeleton crew to Paris than it would be to just film in studio. And so they took the advantage, which is such a great idea, because how many episodes of Doctor Who have we had where it's like entirely studio based, or it's just filming around a quarry? Like, you really need new you really need new locations.
Yeah, changing scenery is very nice every now and then,
So they were able to save more money by limiting the cast to just 7 major speaking parts, having less elaborate sets, costumes, effects. For the example, the suit the Count wears was owned by the actor Julian Glover, and they even dropped K9 from the story to save time and money.
I loved K9's appearance in episode 2 personally. I thought he was great.
Famously, John Nathan Turner hated K9, so I presume this was some sort of a vendetta against K9 in the budgeting. K9 had a different voice this season, which was awful, so I'm glad we don't get K9 at all in this story.
Yeah, I've only heard the one clip of him, so I can't cast judgment
I'm
on
not
alternate
a fan.
voice K9.
I think Douglas Adams wrote a line in this season because of the voice change that K9 had a computer cold. So so this was a really difficult 4-day shoot in Paris because it was cold and it was constantly raining. They filmed it in May and had scenes disrupted because of snow in May, which is just unexpected. And also, Tom and Lala had very little time to get into each location. We had 4 days, and they go all over Paris. It's kind of insane just how many different locations they go to.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it was also May Day holiday around this time, so we couldn't film at some locations we planned to due to them being closed. So there was a lot of last-minute improvisations. They even got into trouble a few times. Authorities told them they needed a permit just to put a tripod on the ground at the train station.
Jesus.
The biggest benefit they had was they actually could shoot unrecognized. Like, nobody knew Doctor Who in Paris around this time. So they could just shoot whatever they wanted, and you wouldn't get like a swarm of kids surrounding Tom Baker.
Yeah.
So it must have been really easy for them.
That's wild. I didn't even consider that before, but imagine, because nowadays, like, being a celebrity, most of the time it's like, at least in the Western part of the world, it's like very hard to be like anonymous. You know, like anywhere you go, people someone somewhere is gonna recognize you. But like, go back into like the 70s, whatever. Tom Baker, massive in the fucking UK, just has to go across the channel anonymous. You know?
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah, and you know, this it's insane to just think about how much freedom they had, because this is the first episode they shot outside of the UK, and they could just shoot without having to worry about anything. Although they do have to worry about a lot, because you know, there's a lot of trains to catch to different locations. This episode looks like a nightmare to film in 4 days. Like, it's insane to think about. But would you like to jump into City of Death unless you have anything else to say?
I have no other things to say. So yes, let us begin. City of Death, Part 1. So, the episode begins in alien planet, where everything is brown and alien-y planety. And there's the thing from The Incredibles there, the big fucking mech thing.
And this is an important time to note. Matthew hasn't seen the next 2 episodes, which is why some of you might be...
Oh, is the twist... is it Earth?
Maybe. Who knows? But yeah, that's the important thing to get out in the air before anybody starts typing in their comments, you know, saying Matthew's a big stupid idiot. I agree, but he just hasn't seen the next 2 episodes.
Yeah. So it's Earth.
No, it's not.
It's the moon. Okay, so we're on the moon, and there's a spaghetti alien man, and he's very angry at his home, and they're telling him to like fuck off or something.
I guess.
They keep saying that or is I forget, honestly. Is he saying you are our only hope, or are they telling him that there is only hope?
They're telling him that
who's
there's
talking. Yeah, okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, and this feels like we're just responding to Star Wars, because Doctor Who in the late 70s and early 80s are like all about trying to respond to Star Wars.
This is before Star Wars.
No, it's not.
This is before Star Wars.
2
Star
years
Wars
later.
is 77. This is 73.
No, it's 79.
Oh, yeah. I don't know why I had in my head 73.
I don't know.
79, you are right. Yeah. Where did... Yeah. Star Wars. Hell yeah. Nothing's changed, though, because even Flux was trying to be Star Wars.
Doctor
Who's still...
Yeah, Doctor Who is always trying to be Star Wars.
Although I like it's not just a Doctor Who problem. All sci-fi is constantly trying to be Star Wars. Star Trek runs into that problem all the fucking time, where it's like, why are you trying to be Star Wars right now? You watch any new sci-fi thing and it's just, oh, you know, you're doing Star Wars, I guess. Fucking Rebel Moon, Star Wars if it was bad, you know.
Even Marvel is trying to be like Star Wars, which doesn't make any goddamn sense because they're owned by the same company that owns Star Wars, so you don't need to try to compete with Star Wars. Fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, it's dumb. But hey, Star Wars is cool, so I'm okay
It's
with
alright.
it. But he goes up in his little weird fucking spider incredible ship thing, and turns into a black hole, or he like absorbs into something, and then the camera gets fucking insane, and like all the exposure and the colors becomes really bright as we zoom into his face.
Yeah.
It's a really cool way to open the episode, and then he explodes.
Yeah, this was actually written to be a cold open to the episode, which is rare for Classic Who because we never do cold opens apart from that one time we did a cold open in Remembrance of the Daleks, but it's like it never happens.
It would be a really cool cold open, and I would have. Classic Who should have done it. They should have. This could have been the changing point.
Yeah.
When they were like, "Wow, that was really effective. We should do cold opens from now on instead of it taking like 30 more years before that happens."
For some reason, the BBC around even until like 2006 or something, they were so against cold opens. Like Star Trek, you know, Star Trek has cold opens in America, but when the BBC aired them, they removed the cold open and put it after the credits instead. I remember as a kid
weird.
watching episodes of What's New Scooby-Doo, and they did the same thing with Scooby-Doo. So I don't know why the BBC were so against cold opens in their shows. It's so bizarre.
That is so strange. Yeah, that is. It's probably just one of those really weird old BBC. These are the rules for some reason. Rules, and nobody bothered to change it.
My only guess is it's the only immediate way you can tell what you're watching, because obviously the intro tells you what show you're watching, rather than waiting 5 minutes to find out. Oh, this is Star Trek. Even though you should probably be able to tell that it's Star Trek, but you know.
Yeah, but I think the efficiency of a cold open is that it hooks you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So like you don't know what you're watching, and then it's like, oh, this is interesting. Oh, it's a show. Okay. Oh, this is what Star Trek is. Okay, I'll watch this then. You know, like it's like a little taster. So BBC's dumb. They should let's go back in time and tell them to fix it. But then we open up after the explosion into the rest of what this episode is, which is let's walk around France for a bit. Forget about that alien guy. Put him out your head. Don't need him. He's not there. Instead, we are with Tom Baker and Lala something. What's her name?
Yeah. The later.
That's it. Yeah.
She would get the two of them would get married like the next year, so they fell in love really quickly, and then very quickly fell out of love. And of course, she would later go on to marry Richard Dawkins. I think they just recently broke up.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
Very interesting indeed.
Yeah. This is my first Romana episode.
Actually, she was in
introduction.
Dimensions in Time. She had that one scene where she was in the garage and she spoke to Bald Man from EastEnders.
I don't count Dimensions in Time isn't an episode; it's an experience. Okay, this is my first Romana episode, and I know very little about her as a character other than she's also a Time Lord. And that's it. That's all I know. That's literally all I know.
That's
about
honestly
her.
all you need to know about her. She was played by a different actress the season before, and this is her in her second incarnation. So this is Romana 2, and she's the better Romana. She is so much better. But in the original episode, she was originally going to wear a sexy silver Lurex catsuit, but Lala Ward refused. She refused to wear it because she did not want to be dressed up in sexy clothing. She didn't want to be the stereotypical Doctor Who girl who's just only there for the dads. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah, we've had that problem multiple times with Classic Who companions when it comes to the female ones. Yeah.
are some sources that say she maybe had her costumer fired from the show, which I think is fair enough. Like if you really don't want to wear something, you shouldn't be forced to wear,
Yeah.
tight clothing. You don't, yeah. So she
Yeah.
chose the schoolgirl outfit herself. As a kid, she really hated wearing school clothing, so she wanted to, just tell the little girls at home that it's okay to dress up for school in smart clothing like that. And like on Monday morning, kids would be thinking, "Oh, I'm like Romana in my school outfit." Like that's what she wanted, which is fair enough. But what she didn't realize, the dads at home found her a bit sexy, so.
Yeah. There's a very large fetish.
Yes, which is
surrounding that. I didn't even clock it was a school uniform. I just was like, oh, she's in a suit, cool, whatever.
But it's very unfortunate.
Well, yeah, cool. The past is a nightmare and people are gross. But I really liked her as a companion, and I really enjoyed the chemistry she has with Tom Baker. Especially in this episode in particular, it's lifted by that Douglas Adams witty dialogue where they can have this charming back and forth with one another, where they're really saying nothing, like in this opening scene here where they're just repeating each other because they're not listening. Tom Baker's not listening really, but it's really funny and charming, and you're instantly like, oh, these two are just wonderful. I can't wait to watch them some more.
And they have a little debate about whether or not they should take the lift down the Eiffel Tower or fly off the Eiffel Tower. And in the original script, it said jump, but Lala Ward really wanted it to be fly, which sounds so much better in my opinion, because there's something otherworldly about the implication that maybe they could fly. Like that's alien. That's so cool.
It puts that thought in your head, like, wait, can the Doctor fly? Is that something that he can do? He just doesn't do it.
And the Doctor has a bit of a line in the dialogue saying the randomizer is a bit, at this point in the series, the Doctor had a randomizer for some reason. I don't know why. There's no point to him having a randomizer.
Yeah, because it was I guess it was to explain away how he still doesn't know how to fly the TARDIS after 17 seasons. But it's not a problem that ever needs answering, because modern who's just like, fuck it, he's an idiot. I don't know.
But basically, this is the point of the episode where they decide, we're just on holiday right now. Let's just have a grand time, which is kind of cool because you don't ever see the Doctor and the companion just show up at the place on holiday. Like they're just always here for no reason really. But I like the idea of the Doctor having the holiday.
They always talk about their holidays like they happened off screen, where they're like, oh, remember we went to X planet and did that fishing thing, or in Flux when they became trapeze experts on Trapezium 9, 7? I don't remember. But but we then get a very entertaining, extremely exciting series of events where the Doctor and Romana walk around Paris and visit the landmarks, and we watch them do that. I'm sure it was probably cooler in the 70s when, you couldn't look at Paris instantly on the little technological device you keep in your pocket and walk around as if you're already there, or put a headset on and be there because of the VR. So I'm sure it was back then. It'd be like, oh, look, Paris is so pretty, it's so beautiful. Yeah. But for me, it gave me Hand of Fear fucking flashbacks.
The reason why we spend so much time wandering around in Paris was because we wrote it in a weekend, and it's like, this script is too short, we don't have enough time to lengthen it out, so we'll just tell the director to spend as much time in Paris as possible, have the Doctor and Romana run around, almost get hit by cars because the Doctor does not look at where he's going. Lala Ward is trying to keep up with Tom Baker, but she's struggling. It's really entertaining, but I really like it. It's fun.
It is fun, and it helps that the music isn't terrible either. It's the soundtrack in this episode is genuinely pretty great. It's probably I think it's up there as one of the better classic Who
Yeah,
soundtracks
yeah.
that we've covered. Because it doesn't make my ears want to bleed. It's fine. We then get introduced to the villain and the cartoon character trapped in a
Yeah.
human man's body. That is the scientist dude.
Yeah.
And he's complaining that he doesn't have enough money to continue the experiments. Big villain guy's like, well, lucky for you, I'm a rich big villain. And then he gives him some money, and he's like, don't worry about it. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Just so we know he's bad.
So we need to talk about these two actors because they are pretty big actors. Well, one of them is, one of them isn't, but we'll get to that. The Count, the villain of the episode, the big spaghetti man himself, is played by Julian Glover. He is a Shakespearean actor, and he's been in a load of franchises since he was in The Avengers. Blake Seven, Empire Strikes Back, James Bond. He played a James Bond villain just like 2 years later. Indiana Jones, Harry Potter, and even Game of Thrones. And you say he had decent role in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, he's a total cunt. He's a total cunt in Game of Thrones.
He's a really good actor.
Or he was sweet. I don't remember. I don't actually. He might have been a nice character. It's been a long time since I watched Game of Thrones. But he was a memorable one.
Yeah. Most recently, he was in the movie Tar, which is a Kate Blanchett film about was she a music composer? I've not seen Tar.
I've not heard of it.
That movie Tar looks a bit too artsy fartsy for me.
Oh wow!
He is.
I'd probably find it okay.
So yeah,
I quite
he
like
is currently 88. So he's had a really good career. This guy, like such a good actor. He is so good in this episode.
He's a lot of fun. I don't think because I've only seen the first 2 episodes. Like I've not really seen him do much of anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we'll see what I think, and by next week.
And Julian is actually the father of Jamie Glover, who we recently saw in An Adventure in Time and Space. He plays William Russell in that episode, in that biopic movie.
Oh, right.
So he plays the guy playing Ian, so that's kind of cool. And he would actually be Ian in some Big Finish audio dramas, which is kind of cool. He was also in Doctor Who before Julian was. He was in The Crusade, where he said that William Hartnell wasn't fun to work with, but he had a lovely time with the rest of the cast. He also had a good time filming City of Death, and even wanted to play Doctor Who himself at one point, so that would have been interesting.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would have been interesting. What could have been?
He was.
I don't know. It'd be an interesting casting for the role.
He was also slightly upset that he couldn't go to Paris because the guy who played Duggan got to have a lovely time in Paris. like Tom Baker and Lala Ward at the end of every day, they just collapsed on the bed because they were so exhausted running around all day, and because the guy who plays Duggan only has like one major scene in Paris. He just got to spend the rest of his time like drinking, eating, and just hanging around with people, seeing the sights.
Paid holiday.
Yes.
Yeah.
So on to the scientist man. He is played by David Graham, who actually voices the Daleks in the 60s. Like he is one of the main Dalek voices in the 60s, even in the Kushin movies. He just returned to the role of the Daleks last year at the age of like 98, which is insane. In the Dalek colorization, he also plays the role of Gordon Tracy on the Thunderbirds, Grandpa Pig on Peppa Pig. And this is probably his most famous role. He is the role of Big Brother in the 1984 Apple Macintosh Super Bowl advert. So, directed by Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
Directed by Ridley Scott, who was originally signed in to design the Daleks. So that's essentially him using his creator.
It's all connected. The Matrix, I see it.
But yeah, that's a massive Super Bowl advert, which is still iconic to this day.
Yeah.
Like, insane. But yeah, that's the two actors we have here. Very accomplished actors.
They are. You know what else? You know what isn't accomplished? at this time, and that would be the European Union, because he pays this guy in francs. I didn't even clock that until watching it around the second time. The first time it just went over my head. So I was like, hang on, wait a minute, that's not a euro. Different world, insane.
And it's very good that we didn't make this episode in like set in like 1999 or anything.
Yeah,
like, that would have been distracting.
Yeah. Setting it at the current time, the current era, was a good idea. It was a good idea. We then get introduced to Beard Nazi guy, who's one of the most villainous looking villains I've ever seen.
He's got a great head of hair and beard. Like, he is insane looking.
Yeah, he's a very well groomed man. He goes to talk to the
Count,
big bad guy, the Count Dooku, yes.
Spaghetti
Man. And they start talking about some various nefarious deeds he's selling. Something I don't remember.
They want to get their hands on this Gutenberg Bible, which reminds me of
that was it. Yeah,
gives me huge flashbacks of having to watch a Gutenberg documentary hosted by Stephen Fry at uni. Like, it was awful. It was so boring. I just did not care, and it did not have anything to do with what I was studying for. So that was fun. I loved
cool.
uni. It was so fun.
Yeah. I also loved university. It was a great choice.
Oh
God. We then go to the doctor, who reads a book really slowly. Just kidding. He flicks through it at record speed and finishes it, and it's like a classic doctor moment. It has been repeated in Modern Who a couple times with, I think, David Tennant and Matt Smith, probably Capaldi as well. Even whenever the Doctor picks up a book, they tend to flick right through it and be like, oh, great book, shit, whatever the fuck. I think we saw it very recently with Capaldi.
I do not recall.
Yeah, I don't. It feels fresh in my mind. I don't know why. But they're sitting in a cafe, and the doctor is like, "Hey, Romana, don't look right now, but a dude is drawing you." And Romana's like, "What, really?" And he's like, "Yeah, but like, don't look, okay?" And she's like, "Cool. Anyway, I'm gonna look." And she turns her head to look at the man, and the man is like, "What the fuck?" He gets up, he rips up this drawing, and he throws it on the ground. Because he was so extremely fucking pissed off that Romana would dare ruin his drawing.
I don't
by
get it.
by turning her head, which gets more confusing when you see the drawing, which was off the front of her face. So I don't know why he needed to be staring at, like, he's not even like drawing the back of the hat. Like, he's drawing the front of her. Why are you staring at the back of her? It makes no sense. This guy's got the shortest fuse in the goddamn world.
But yeah, the picture is a great drawing of Lala Ward, but with a clock face that's broken.
Oh, it's cool as fuck.
It's really cool.
It's cool as fuck.
I don't understand why he drew it. I guess maybe he's psychic and knows that she's a Time Lord, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, the Doctor goes on to explain, like, he's like, time moves weirdly around us, Romana. We've got a connection to time. It leaves a time aura. Time.
Yeah, one of my notes is time. They say time a lot in this episode. It's like 50% of the script.
Well, it's about time, whatever the fuck, because time is looping with the time stuff. Because this is a Groundhog Day episode where when the man throws the paper on the floor, we like zoom into the Doctor's face and the camera does a little wibble wobble, and then we zoom back out and it's like, whoa, we're watching the scene again because time is repeating itself. Which wasn't a plot point I was expecting. I was pleasantly surprised by it. I was like, ooh, this is fun. Yeah, this is a fun little concept. I've not seen classic Who do before.
So the artist was originally going to have a larger role in the original draft. He would have been actually page to age for duplicate Mona Lisa seen at the end of part 2, and then he would be murdered by the Count's thugs. But here he is, just in a very minor role instead. In the original sketch, Romana had 3 eyes instead of a clock face. I think the clock face is so much more iconic. I want that clock face on my wall. I want I want it. I want that print. It looks really
I'm surprised.
goddamn cool.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's not used in more marketing material because it's cool as fuck. I mean, I know it is from like a 44-year-old episode, but it's it's cool.
And earlier today, when you were watching this scene, I was watching YouTube, and we occasionally text each other when we're watching these Doctor Who episodes. And as you were watching this scene on my YouTube, it played an advert for Red Bull where there's a French artist who really needs his Red Bull. And the coincidence of that happening around this scene is insane. I don't understand. It really freaked me out, to be honest.
Well, I mean, you've got to think about all the spyware you've got in your house, all those microchips that you've got in your blood running around from all those vaccines that you were given. These are the sort of things that make them broadcast Red Bull adverts to you on your TV. So that's you've got to live with the consequences of your actions.
Well.
You reap what you sow. But we then cut to the villains who've got the most fucking 70s sci-fi fucking Googa with these fucking like 3 red fucking rockets pointed down as these are lasers. Don't worry about it. They do science things.
Yeah, don't worry about it. A lot of these scenes that just cuts to the Count and the Professor dude are really pointless.
They do nothing. They do nothing. They do nothing.
It's just them standing around saying, "Oh, our plan will be in fruition soon. We're almost here." It's like we get that every like 5 minutes. We just need a constant reminder that they're still doing their plans.
We need to also mention that the Doctor says that this time loop is happening. He's like, it's a crack in time. He goes, a crack in time, which is, Matt Smith, fucking goblins with shooty, cracks in time. There is no original stories in Doctor Who. Nope. It's all been done. They've finished them.
And Moffat was a huge fan of this episode, and also Douglas Adams in general. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a direct reference to the City of Death. Like Stephen Moffat loved Douglas Adams. I would say he's the most Douglas-y Adams writer in modern Who. Like you can just
you can definitely feel in Moffat's dialogue the Douglas Adams inspiration. That witty back and forth between people. It's a good time. I love it. We then get another tour of Paris. We get another tour of Paris. Well, they sit down for a bit to have some more fucking coffee, and they're like, time, and then they're like, let's walk around Paris a bit more.
Yeah, for like a minute and a half.
Straight up, we get some. There's some nice shots. There is some cool shots, but it is just the plot stops again as they decide to walk their way to go look at the Mona Lisa. It takes a minute and a half between scenes of them sitting down and then the next scene starting of filler. It's brilliant. I love it.
And every time I watch Tom Baker narrowly almost avoid getting hit by a car, I'm just reminded of John. John.
Well, you gotta think, right? He's in Paris. The cars do drive on the other side of the road. Maybe he's just not paying attention properly. He's too used to looking left instead of right.
Do you know if John Pertwee's Splink adverts?
Do I know if John Pertwee's what adverts?
Splink.
Splink. No, I do not.
Okay, maybe we can play a little bit of this advert.
Here's how to remember the green cross code. First, find a safe place to cross, then stop. Stand on the pavement near the curb. Look all round for traffic and listen. If traffic is coming, let it pass. When there is no traffic near, walk straight across the road. Keep looking and listening for traffic while you cross.
Stay!
Well, now we'll all remember the green cross code and use it.
The initials doesn't make any sense.
So the fucking the word splink doesn't fucking match anything that he's saying. Safe place S. Stand on the pavement is P. And you're supposed to remember. Oh, what did P stand for? Oh yeah, stand. Got it.
It is the most confusing initials for his ad campaign.
Alice, look around. Look around. Oh no, listen, sorry. Alice, look around and listen. If traffic is coming, let it pass. That's I. It's a short one, so you can really remember it. When there is no traffic near, walk across the road. Yes, that's N. You're right.
Yeah, it is the most confusing initials of all time. It just makes children more confused, if anything. Like,
yeah, that's you know, they really overcomplicated
they did,
it.
yes.
Stop, look, and listen. Stop, look, and listen. The little fucking hedgehog. That's what I
Yeah,
got taught at school.
same.
Stop that. That's so much easier to remember than fucking splink.
Oh god.
Oh my god, incredible. No wonder Tom Baker was so fucking, like, confused as to what he was supposed to do and almost getting hit by cars. It's like trying to cross the road. What did L stand for again? Fucking stay where I'm going? Like... But at the Mona Lisa, the Doctor and Romana, the Doctor is really fucking passionate about the Mona Lisa. He loves it.
He is.
This is his favorite painting of all time. He's gonna fucking yell in this museum how much he loves fucking Mona Lisa.
You know, another reason you can tell that Stephen Moffat is a big fan of this episode is Tom Baker plays the curator in 2013. Like,
oh yes,
like Tom Baker just loves art. That's his incarnation of the Doctor, apparently. Like, directly influenced from this episode, I imagine.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's cool. They also, Romana's not so impressed, and she points out the thing that everybody discovered when they were a child, that the Mona Lisa has no eyebrows.
This is a thing you discovered? I only realised it when I first watched this episode a few weeks ago.
Really?
Yes.
Really? Wow, I thought it was way more common knowledge. Yeah, no, I knew that since I was a kid. That was like hey, did you know the Mona Lisa doesn't have eyebrows? And you're like, what the fuck? And then you're like, yeah, it doesn't.
At my school, we weren't told about the Mona Lisa. We were told about Marilyn Manson removing his ribs so he can give himself a blowjob.
Well, yeah. I mean, my school had that as well, but like that was like more when I got to secondary school. I was talking about like primary school. I've learned about the Mona Lisa, man. I'm fucking behind. Like, it's fun. I don't really give a shit about the Mona Lisa.
No,
it's cool from, I guess, a historical perspective, but as a painting, I'm like, okay, it's a lady. Which is, of course, extremely ignorant of me because I don't know anything about art. But that's why I'm not impressed by it.
There's a really awful Sarah Jane Adventures episode where they meet the Mona Lisa, and it's just like one of the worst episodes of that show. I can't wait to cover it someday.
You know what is a really, really good song? It's from Popstar, Never Stopping. It's the Mona Lisa Sucks.
Right?
Incredible song.
And I still need to watch it.
You should listen to that song. You should just listen to that song. Listen to the Mona Lisa Sucks. It is a high quality song, and it explains all of my real feelings, real, true, 100% believable feelings I have towards the Mona Lisa.
I will.
But then tour guide, I guess, comes up with a big group of people to the Doctor, and she's like, "Hey, can you like stop yelling about how much you love the Mona Lisa and move on, please?"
What I don't understand about this lady and some other French characters inside of the story is she speaks English, but some words like Monsieur is French. So what's going on with the TARDIS translation there? I don't understand.
Like, don't worry about it. Okay, just don't worry about it.
And when Tom Baker turns around to meet this lady, she gives a big yelp because Tom Baker elbows her in the head. And there's a really cute there's a really cute moment in the studio footage where Tom Baker just apologizes to this lady for for hitting her. And the lady's like, "Oh, no, it doesn't matter." And Tom Baker's like, "Oh, it does matter. I might have given you a black eye," which is like the purest Tom Baker moment ever, in my opinion. He's really sweet in that studio footage. I really like it.
Yeah. He seems like an interesting dude. everything I learn about Tom Baker, and every time I see him, he's like a different man. Yeah, the cool guy. But he like time starts to freak out again, and then he gets really dizzy, and he tries to grab a man's penis, claiming that there's a gun there, and he's like, "Look, there it is," and he just kind of palms the dude.
Yeah,
This was very funny. It was a very funny scene.
This is the third episode that we've covered of the Fourth Doctor out of 3, where he almost grabs some genitals or some body parts. Because in the first one was a Hand of Fear, where he gropes the lady's breast.
Yeah.
The second one where it was he tried to stop Harry in Genesis of the Daleks, but he almost grabs his penis by mistake. And here the same thing almost happens. Like, he is a gropey man.
He's just I don't know. He's got bad coordination, or he's just unlucky. I guess.
Which I 100% relate to, because I remember a few years ago, I was filming something for college, and I was on a train, and of course I'm a 6'3" man, so I took all the film equipment on my back, like the boom pole underneath my arm, and shit like that.
Yeah.
And
because to you it's tiny. To you it's like you can put that in your pocket.
and according to the people I was working with, I almost hit like 7 people on that train just turning around. Like, there's a man there who gave it like a really shocked look. Like,
holy shit.
Like, this man's life flashed before his eyes because I almost hit him in the head.
Oh my god. Do you imagine if you did?
Like,
that'd be
I just have zero coordination.
You're just oblivious to the world around you. Oh, that's funny. That's great. So the episode continues on as the Doctor and Romana decide to take another walk around Paris.
Well, we've got a quick scene
really
just before
time.
that with the Count and the Professor. Basically, the whole point of the scene is, you better hurry up, Professor. And the Professor's like, I can't, I'm too tired. And that's basically the scene.
I skipped over that scene on purpose, believe it or not. The scene with the Doctor and Romana walking through Paris, this is like the second or third scene of them walking around, and I think this is the best one.
Yeah.
Just mainly because I like the music in this one, because this goes on. This is also the worst one because it by far feels like the longest. But the music is really good in this scene, and some of the shots are a bit creative.
Yeah, like the postcard shot. There's a shot where the Doctor and Romana are walking up to like a postcard magazine rail, whatever you want to call them, and somebody from behind the camera removes one of the postcards, and we can see the Doctor and Romana walking up through the frame, which is quite cool. But in the commentary, the director kind of criticizes himself, basically saying it kind of draws attention to itself, which I kind of understand why, because when you're watching this scene, you kind of think about the people behind the cameras removing the postcard, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it is a nice shot, and it's more creativity than most classic Who can afford, really.
Yeah, it's just about your perspective on it, really. Because I mean, I guess that is like one criticism you can bring against anything that's stylized is you're not thinking about the story, you're thinking about how cool that camera movement was. But I think that those are things that can coexist. I love stylized things personally, so.
And the script at this point said as much following as the budget allows, and the director has a solid 2 minutes of screen time just following around the Dr. Romana. At least this one has a purpose rather than them just wandering around aimlessly like previously in the episode. It's to show that they are being followed, so that's fair enough. And they are being followed really badly, and that's what it shows. It's kind of cool.
The Doctor and Romana then sit down for a cup of tea or a break or whatever the fuck and discuss some more plot things. They talk about how it is an alien trying to steal the Mona Lisa because it's a very pretty painting, as this bracelet thing that they have is not of Earth origin. And this is like it's kind of a nothing scene. It ends with the best joke where the doctor's like, I think there's something strange. I think there's a man with a gun in my back right now. Which I butchered that line, but something like that. Which I think is great. The entire scene has just Douglas Adams all over it.
Yes.
This in the opening scene is just Douglas Adams dialogue. We're just like, oh, this is brilliant. I want everything to be like this, please.
This scene was actually supposed to take place inside a Paris cafe or whatever, but because it's a bank holiday Monday or whatever, they couldn't find a place that was open, so they just sat outside instead, which is fair enough. It's a good little scene here.
And it was lucky it was a nice day that it doesn't take you out of it.
Luckily,
it's believable that they would sit outside, you know? It's not like it's pissing with rain, why are you outside? When they sit down in the cafe, nothing happens, we cut away. But when they go into the cafe, nobody gives a shit.
Yes.
That there's an armed man. There's several armed men that come into this cafe. So, like, I'm like, is Paris in the 1970s just this really, like, really positive place where people love guns and have guns all the time? There's constant shootings.
Well, in the script, there's a mention that the patron of the restaurant sees the guns, and then he's like, it's none of my business. I'm not getting involved with shit. And he just kind of ignores it instead. But I guess we just cut it out of the actual episode because it's hard to communicate. But this kind of reminds me of when we did the Two Doctors, when I think it was Oscar, the actor dude, who got stabbed or whatever inside of a restaurant, and nobody in the background.
Oh yeah, they just left him to die. They were just like, yeah, fuck it, he sucked. Yeah, poor guy. God, what is with restaurants and Doctor Who? We then get a scene with villain man Count Dooku and his wife.
Yeah,
is that their relationship?
I'm presuming it's the wife. It's not really emphasized enough to make it clear. But yeah, this is the Countess, so I presume it must be the wife.
That would make sense, yeah.
And she is smoking a big, what do you call these? A big stick of...
she's a big stick. Has she got like a cigarette holder?
Yeah,
it's like what it is.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's
she's like the lady from 101 Dalmatians.
Yes, Cruella de Vil is, and the actress in real life is a smoker, and then she was like, you know what my character really needs? A big long cigarette. So she just got.
Vibe. They established a vibe instantly.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I mean, in between takes, she had to keep puffing and smoking just to maintain the continuity, and occasionally call for new sticks to be given to her. So, she had a really grand time just smoking away.
You know, I'm sure she loved it. It was the style at the time, really.
Yeah,
so.
It's insane to think about now. Like, if you asked,
I mean,
can my character smoke?
Vaping, isn't it?
Oh, I hate vaping.
Yeah, vaping nicotine. I don't vape nicotine. We then cut to the doctor. Or this scene. Either way, I wouldn't even talk about what's fucking going on in this scene. She's basically wanting to do crime things or not do them, and the Count's like, you must obey me like you always do, because he's not a nice guy. He's a really rude dude, and he's drinking a mysterious green drink.
Yeah, which I think must be his piss, right? Like, he just drinks his piss.
I suppose, like, I was about to say, why is his piss green, but he's an alien?
Yeah, he's a green alien spaghetti man, so it must be his piss.
Okay, but does piss need to be flesh-colored?
Not always.
What sort of world are you living in? Not always, but sometimes it has to be.
I'm sure there's aliens who piss green ink. You know, he's kind of like a squid man. It might be his ink, actually. You know.
It's very, very like ink has got a certain viscosity to it that doesn't, that looks more.
But
watery.
it's alien ink, you know.
Okay, sure.
Alien ink doesn't have to resemble human ink. I mean, like.
Why would they call it ink then?
But yeah, this scene is.
I think you need to take a biology class.
But yeah, this scene is basically the lady saying, "Oh no, I lost I lost the armband or whatever you want to call it, the bracelet."
The bracelet.
And the character is very upset, and she's like, "Don't worry, I've got it handled. More men with guns."
Yeah, which happens almost immediately as the doctor is in the cafe and some more men with guns enter. Again, nobody gives a shit about these men with the guns. The doctor gives them the bracelet, very hilariously putting it on the ring of the gun. I thought that was a nice touch. And the dude they're with in the trench coat, whose name I couldn't tell you if you paid me.
Or Dugan? Duggan or Dugan?
Duggan. Duggan sounds right. Duggan does sound right. He doesn't believe the doctor for whatever reason. He's like, this is all the really elaborate ploy. That he like goes to walk away, and the doctor's like, "Oh, but the Mona Lisa," which makes him turn around. Like, and it's a weirdly blocked scene. It's weird, but yeah.
And then Duggan's like, "What's Scarleone's angle?" Because Scarleone is the name of the count. I just say count because Scarleone is kind of weirdly difficult to pronounce. But what's
Scarleone? It's got a good mouthfeel.
What's Scarleone's angle? And Romana's like, I don't know, I never studied like math or whatever she says.
Yeah. Yeah, I really do enjoy this. I like Romana in this form. I don't know Romana in any other version, but this version of Romana that I'm seeing and experiencing, I really enjoy. I really like as a companion. I think it's so different from other classic Who companions, and it's so refreshing and cool. Really
believe it or not, later on in the story, you see her using her intelligence to help save the day.
Wow.
Like that's impressive stuff for a classic Doctor Who companion.
Can't believe the 70s were woke. Gee whiz. We then cut to the villain and his boyfriend as he's sitting with the bracelet, and he orders the death of these two guys. But they have like a little flirty back and forth where like the guy pretends to be confused at what he's supposed to do, and he's like, oh, no, just kill those guys. Oh, you love you. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Yeah, this Herman dude is quite a hunk, isn't he?
He's
a
shag.
Tall, dark, handsome man. He is a hunk.
They shag. They shag. You know, it's... what else happens at the scene? What the fuck was the point of the scene? It's just another scene talking to the lady again.
Yeah, they get the bracelet back.
Yeah.
That's all that happens.
Yeah, like a scene. Yeah, it's like a scene before. God, we need that bracelet. The next scene. Thank God we got the bracelet. Wow.
Yeah, thank God we got the bracelet. Now go back to the cafe to kill the doctor.
Yeah.
Or get the doctor at least. It's like it's just a constant
like
back and
forth. Yeah.
and like you would imagine that the doctor and Romana would leave the restaurant at some point because now they know where they are. Like just leave the restaurant and we wouldn't be able to find you again because it'd be like a half-hour walk or whatever. I don't know how long this walk is, but it's like no time.
Yeah, it's really strange, but I guess, you know, there's only so many sets or so many cafes they can film inside or whatever the fuck is going on. But hey, whatever. They get captured again, or they get guns pointed at them, and that's because they're like, hey, there's somebody putting guns at us, and then Duggan does a fucking double take. He's like, oh, whoa. It's fine. It's whatever. It's very silly. They're also
the entire time I'm just watching the two Frenchmen in the background, just staring at them.
Yeah, just staring at them, like smoking, being like, well, this is interesting. But we then cut back to the Countess Dooku, who has to go find her husband for whatever reason because he's left. She goes off to get him, and he is in a back room somewhere, ripping off his face to reveal that he is the
Nicolas
green
Cage.
spaghetti monster. Yeah.
But yeah, this whole
And
scene, this whole part with the Countess standing by the mantelpiece, looking in the mirror and smoking.
Yeah.
This is what I imagine those kind of like Dallas and Dynasty shows to be like. I've never seen a single episode, but it's just these aristocratic people just standing around smoking, you know?
It's a vibe. That's a vibe, you know?
But yeah, what do you think of the effect of the guy ripping off his face?
I'm going to watch it again right now. I think it's pretty good. It's clearly like a rubber mask of just like a regular white dude's face.
Yeah.
And like when he goes to rip it, like he digs the hands through the face, and that looks really cool. And he goes to rip it, but it looks like it doesn't tear properly or in time, so he just kind of lifts the mask off. And you see like the chin and the like fake neck come off the top of his head, which I guess still it works. It's still effective, but it's not as cool as if he ripped the thing in two. But I love it, honestly. I think this would have been terrifying if you were a kid. You'd be like, holy shit, you just ripped off his face.
So yeah, John Friedlander actually wanted a model of Julian Glover's head over an inflatable version of a Scaroff mask. And the alien mask would inflate, and the actual human head mask would like burst off the head, which would explain why the alien head is so much bigger than the actor's head.
Yeah.
Like, that would have been cool, but of course, you know, it's in 1979, the budget's been slashed, we don't have enough time to do it, so we're just left with this decent looking effect, but I can't help but wonder what would have been.
Yeah. It could have been cool. Instead, it's neat, but it's still really fun.
And
I get all the effects. I really like the effects in this story. They're really fun. They're silly.
And I would recommend getting the Blu-ray just for the audio commentary alone, because Tom Baker did a audio commentary for episodes 1 and 4 back in I want to say like 2021, and during this scene, all you can hear is just Tom Baker, 88-year-old Tom Baker, laughing his head off at this scene, and it is the most wholesome thing ever.
Oh, that's great. That's so good. But yeah, that's the end of part 1 of the City of Death. We are going to jump straight into part 2 in a matter of a few seconds. Oh my god, it's happening with a recap. I say a recap, a replay of the moments before the cliffhanger in the last episode, all the way up to the man ripping off his face. The episode properly begins after that, where the Countess Dooku is waiting for the doctor and that to be delivered to her, and this scene is spectacular. When the doctor comes in, Tom Baker is just like on fire. He is quickly in this story alone, because I've enjoyed him in the other stories that we've covered, but I think and like in like Genesis of the Daleks and stuff like that, he's great in them as well. But I really love his performance in this episode. I think he is definitely up there as one of my favorite classic Who doctors right now. Really, really enjoy him.
I think it must be the pairing between Douglas Adams' writing and Tom Baker's performance, because I think they're like a perfect marriage. I think they're perfect together. Like, Tom Baker isn't as well. Tom Baker's always on fire, but he isn't always as funny as he is here. He's perfect here.
Yeah, he is. It feels so much like modern Doctor Who.
It does,
with his performance here. You know, there's a lot of that clownery while still being like the smartest one in the room, sort of deal. Like it's such a good performance, and some amazing writing as well. I'm in stitches in this scene constantly.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines is, "What a wonderful butler, he's so violent." That's like one of the peak Doctor Who lines.
Yeah, they discover like not really much happens in this scene, other than it's just bad guys monologuing at the doctor, and this is the first scene with the bad guys actually with the doctor, and it happens in episode 2. But they're basically just like, ha ha ha, we're bad. We have the bracelet. There's a cool scene with Romana where she solves the puzzle box like instantly, and it's like, aha, there's the bracelet in there. It's like, wow, look at that, a companion that's smart and does things. She doesn't just look at it and like scream. Yeah.
The Doctor makes this whole excuse of Duggan trying to follow the Countess because he's really attracted to her and he wants to ask her on a date, and the Doctor's like, oh, because you're a pretty woman. Probably. And that probably line, Tom Baker wanted to keep the Doctor as innocent as possible. So he wasn't greedy, he wouldn't drink or smoke. He's actually drinking water in this scene and the previous scene in the restaurant. And the Doctor would be completely asexual, so he wouldn't find beauty in women. So that's why Tom Baker added the probably line, which makes sense. I don't mind that portrayal of the Doctor, even though nowadays obviously the Doctor is more sexualized. Like the Doctor fucks, especially Shooty's Doctor, I think.
But again, I like to think like the Doctor face changes, their sex changes. I always imagine their sexuality changes as well. So it's just like, the Doctor, this is not a very sexual incarnation of the Doctor. Like Matt Smith's Doctor was not a sexy sex Doctor. Like he had River Song, but even then when they would kiss, he would squirm like fuck. Yeah. Like and so, like, it changes, I think, with every Doctor and every personality that comes to it. It's one of those things that adds to the role in such a different way, because it helps you portray the character differently,
Yeah, and it's, as always, like, the same core foundation of the Doctor is always there, which is really cool, apart from, William Hartnell's Doctor is a prick. he's a prick down. Like, that's the only Doctor that's not heroic.
No, he's out for himself. Big bad guy Count Dooku comes in as well in this scene, and they both are basically just like, oh, Doctor, we don't believe that you're really an idiot. You're going to jail now. We're gonna lock you in our prison. And the Duggan goes to smash the chair over him, which the Doctor's like, no, you can't do that. That's King Louis. Go put it down. We'll go down to the dungeon. That's fine. And he gets him taken down into the dungeon. And on the way there, he sees a lab, and he immediately is so smitten with this lab. He's like, fuck, this looks so cool. This looks so fun. And the guy's like, come on, down to the dungeon. He's like, fuck, I want to stay in the lab, though. And then later on, in the next 2 scenes when they're in the dungeon, every time someone suggests something, he's like, yeah, but we'll look at the lab first, though, right? Like, they're in the cell, and Romana's like, hey, there's something interesting over here in the cell. And the Doctor's like, oh, that is interesting. But first, let's look at the lab. I want to look at the lab, okay?
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those type your own adventure games, which Douglas Adams would go on to write multiple of, where you want to go to the lab because that seems like the most plausible place to look for clues. Like,
yeah,
and
the game keeps prompting you to other things. You're like, no, go to lab.
I just love when writers actually remember the Doctor as a scientist. So him in a laboratory is so fun because, in Modern Who we have like David Tennant inventing devices, but he doesn't really spend time in like an actual laboratory. He just comes up with it in the TARDIS or whatever. It's just so cool to see the Doctor inside a laboratory.
Yeah, it's cool. It's really fun to see him be excited by it as well. Like he loves science so much. He sees a laboratory and he's just like, I want to go and play. I must play. They eventually break out from their little tiny cell with the sonic screwdriver.
The sonic screwdriver, the sonic screwdriver does not work at the beginning. Duggan hits it against the wall. Suddenly, the sonic screwdriver works. It was like me with this trying to work this microphone yesterday. You just have to turn it off and on again.
Sometimes it's what it needs.
It's crazy.
They break out and they go into look at this. Look at the laboratory. Duggan is not happy about this. He's like, I want to go to the Louvre. You know, the Mona Lisa's getting stolen. Why are you fucking around in the lab, Doctor? And the Doctor's like, I don't know. The lab seems important, probably. Like, it's really cool. Look at all the cool things that are here. And meanwhile, Romana is just in the background moving shit about. And it's brilliant. It's perfect. You know?
Yeah, and like the Doctor pauses, realizes that Romana is doing something, and she's like, do you know what she's doing? And Duggan's like, no, I don't. And the Doctor's like, neither do I. Anyway, let's just keep looking around here. Like, Romana...
Then the scene ends. Like...
Romana is actually the only one being useful in this scene. She's like, what? She's a smart character. I really like Romana.
It's a really well written companion, especially for the era as well. I'm so impressed with it.
And like, I just love the fact that she's not even just going to argue with the Doctor anymore. She's just going to take care of her
she's
own
just like,
shit.
fuck, I'm just gonna do it. Like, I know he's not gonna do it, so I'm gonna do it. Yeah.
It's perfect chemistry. It's like they are a married couple, you know.
Yeah, it's really good. Then the scientist man comes back into his lab. The Doctor and Duggan manage to hide away from him and spy on what he's doing, as he gets an egg and fires the lasers at it to make it hatch and rapidly grow a chicken. In a pretty okay effect. I mean, it's just like a slide transition of various chickens.
Yeah,
but it's cool.
It's pretty cool. The original idea was to use stock footage, but the special effects people were like, nah, we can fucking do this. We're perfectly capable of doing this. So they just made a sequence themselves. They shot it against a black backdrop, and the cameraman actually pulled a prank by supplying a black chick. So they actually had to paint the black chick yellow using harmless poster paint, apparently. I'm not sure how harmless it is, but
yeah.
But the full size...
That's a funny prank until you didn't bring another chicken.
Yes.
So why, you just fucked production.
Yes. But the full-size chicken and the chicken skeleton were actual puppets. Of course, we wouldn't bring an actual chicken skeleton, but it's really cool. And on the DVD, you can actually watch a little montage of them working on this effect. It's like a 2-minute montage. It's really cool. I dig it.
Yeah, that's fun. The Doctor comes out and chastates him, and he's like, "Hey, you're an idiot. Why are you messing with time shit?" And there's some really fun lines here where the Doctor's like, "Oh, what about being the best in the universe in it?" And the guy's like, "Oh, but you can't get to the universe." He's like, "Well, you can't get to the universe. Maybe you shouldn't be fucking around with time." It's great.
What I like about this scene, it gives an actual reason for why the scientist is working with the bad guys. It's because he wants to grow a full-sized cow in like seconds to feed the hungry.
Yeah.
That's a noble cause, and you can believe it. Even though the performance is like cartoony as hell, it's like easily the worst performance in this episode, I must say.
Yeah, definitely is the most. It's like it stands out. Where you're like, oh, that's okay. They're acting.
Yeah, but I do love the Doctor and the scientist bonding over science. We're just science bros here. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's really fun. And the Doctor reverses the polarity of the machine.
Hell yeah.
Get it? It's like in Doctor Who. This causes the chicken to de-age and go back into its egg form, which is very surprising to the scientist man. But then the egg turns into the squid alien. I haven't seen episodes 3 and 4 yet, so I don't know if they address this. Are these chicken descendants or chicken ancestors? I guess these guys will eventually, like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? It was the squid guy.
So I haven't seen episodes 3 and 4 since before Christmas. So in around a month, I haven't seen this story. So I don't know why the skeleton man appears in the image, but I guess we'll find out. Keep that question in our back pockets, and we'll see if it gets answered next week.
Was he a chicken all along? Then Duggan sneaks up behind and knocks out the scientist for no reason, because he's a dick. Mainly, yeah.
Yep. which is a really funny character trait, and he just it gets even wackier next
He just
episode.
loves punching. He just
I love
loves
it.
punching.
Wait, just you wait till you see how he opens a bottle of wine.
It's kind of gross that he's a cop, but I guess it's not inaccurate.
True.
That he just loves punching.
But it's basically the Bulldog Drummond character. He just answers questions by punching people. It's like James Bond, and also the Third Doctor. He just punches sea devils all the time.
He's a man of action. He's a man of action.
No time for questions.
The episode continues on as Romana's like, hey, there's like a way out through the back here, by the way. If you guys want to come and do anything about that. We then cut to a very long scene of the bad guys cutting out the Mona Lisa from it where it's standing, and they use a sonic knife, which made me want to die. I laughed. It was very funny. I was like, Jesus fuck. Okay, cool. A sonic knife, I guess. They also like blow the lasers to the side that come out in effect that looks pretty good still. It's not great, but it's not terrible. It's kind of fun how they managed to get the lasers to bend and nobody touches them accidentally.
Yeah,
which I thought I was keeping an eye out for that. I was like, is anyone gonna touch it?
Yeah, it is a pretty long scene. It does need some trimming, but it is a really effective scene in showing what their plan is and how smart these people are. And also the special effects look pretty decent for the time. And there was a mistake made in this scene with the projector thing. At one point, like, the handle broke off, and Herman, who's like the henchman, kept in character. So he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir, but this appears to have broken."
That's great. We then got back to the doctor. Oh wait, sorry. We have a small scene where they're back in the house. And
so
they're like, God, we're so smart and we're so lovely. How are you so smart and lovely? And he's like, it's because I'm an alien.
So the effect of the museum
the match
turning
cut
into
transition
is pretty decent.
Yeah.
It's pretty decent.
It's pretty good. Yeah, it's especially for the time. I was really impressed by it. I was like, oh, that actually, I could see what you were going for there, and it kind of worked. One of the guys' faces don't match, so if you watch him in particular, he like morphs weirdly. But other than that, it holds up pretty well.
I presume on the DVD they must have like cut out some black lines around the outline of the people, but
yeah,
I presume it looked almost as good on the actual transmission. It's hard to tell because we obviously don't have the actual transmitted show here. So it's a restoration, but it still looks decent.
It does. I was happy with it. I thought it was cool.
Oh, and sorry, the short scene of the Countess and the Count flirting. There's also on the studio footage you can see them interact a little bit more, where the lady who plays the Countess has like an eyelash on her cheek, and she's like, "Oh my god, an eyelash! Oh jeez, get out of the way!" And and then she's like, "Oh, at least I don't have an eye on my forehead like you." There's a lot of banter between the cast, which is fun to watch on the studio cut. It's fun. It's a fun Blu-ray.
Yeah, that's fun. We then discover with the Doctor and Romana and Duggan that there are 7 people exactly 7 people, no more, no less, that would be willing to buy the Mona Lisa if it was stolen. Only 7, and we know who they are. They are very public about it. They say, I would buy the Mona Lisa if it was stolen, but I'd keep it secret, so don't tell anybody. 7 people said that. And it's very silly, but it gets even more silly when they're like, "Oh, we just can't get through this brick wall," and Duggan's like, "Bro, not only do I know that there are 7 people that would buy the Mona Lisa, but also I have arms made of steel." And then he just runs through the fucking wall like it's nothing.
Yeah, and of course it's classic Doctor Who, so the set wobbles a bit. But yeah, it's really charming. It's really fun.
It was almost a step too far for me. It really took me out the episode. I was like, "What the fuck?"
If that's a step too far for you, I'm wondering what you'll think of the Duggan stuff next week, because it gets even more insane, I think.
He's just not human. Like,
yeah, he is just a full parody, man. Like, he's not an actual character.
Yeah.
He's just a parody of like 1920 novels.
But then they discover through this wall a bunch of Mona Lisas, all of them the real Mona Lisa. How can this possibly be? I thought this was a really cool reveal. I wasn't expecting this to happen when I was watching. I wasn't expecting Mona Lisa to be quite so everywhere.
Yeah.
I think it's a fun little sci-fi twist on it, where he's like, oh, he's going to manipulate this time thing so he can, create 7 Mona Lisas, steal the real Mona Lisa, and then sell a Mona Lisa to all 7 people that said that they would buy a Mona Lisa if it was stolen. And that way he gets 7 times more the money.
Yeah.
It's a very clever idea.
Yeah, it's also really far-fetched, but...
Oh, yeah. Ridiculous.
Inside of a show, when you're actually watching it and not nitpicking it like we do, you can believe it. You can just get carried along with it,
Yeah,
And-
it fits the story. It does. It's the episode opened with the squid man with one eye. Like, it's you can believe a lot when that's your opening.
and this episode was written in April of 1979. It was filmed in May, and in July, Douglas Adams found out that there's a science fiction book that was released around the time where author Christopher Priest had collected a load of short stories, and there's a very similar short story in this book that was published in July. So it's not really them copying. So you really can't say that Doctor Who copied this book. But the story was about Leonardo painting multiple Mona Lisas, and it was just a storyline about multiple Mona Lisas, and of course, you don't know who. Do you know who Christopher Priest is?
It's not a name I recognize. Off the top of my head.
I looked him up, and the only thing I know about Christopher Priest, I know about his previous work, is he's the original author for Prestige, which is the Nolan film. So.
Oh yes, The Prestige.
Have you seen that film? It's really good.
I have. It's very fun. It's very fun. It's not my favorite Nolan, but I very much enjoyed it.
Douglas Adams really wanted Christopher Priest to write for Doctor Who, so he quickly issued an apology just in case there was going to be any issues with this. Like, the story had nothing to do with this Doctor Who episode, but it was just in case. And Christopher Priest was actually attached to write 2 Doctor Who episodes at one point. Neither of them came into fruition. And Priest says that Doctor Who sounded interesting because it was a challenge for a writer, and because it was with a tiny budget, a more or less fixed cast of characters, and a fairly inflexible storyline, and millions of fans who will beat the shit out of you if you look over a crucial fact. Mentioned in an undertone by a minor character in the second part of a story first transmitted in 1968. That was Christopher Priest's words about writing Doctor Who. Like, he was interested in the role because of that kind of fandom surrounding the show. So he wound up writing 2 scripts. The first wasn't produced because of upheavals in the show. And Priest says Douglas Adams pissed off to become a rich and famous writer. To make up for it, the BBC commissioned a second story from him, but he got into a huge fight with John Nathan Turner, and this is his words on John Nathan Turner. The new producer, John Nathan Turner, turned out to be an appalling little, censored by the original interviewer.
Jesus.
Like, he did not have kind words for this man. He was more interested in being a media star than actually working with a lowly writer like me. It all led inevitably to a bust-up. I grabbed a parachute and took a header through the nearest emergency hatch. So yeah, that's a little bashing of John Nathan Turner this episode. Like, we always have to bash John Nathan Turner, I think. Interesting man.
I don't know enough about him, or I've not seen enough of his era to feel comfortable to enjoy joining in on bashing John Nathan Turner, because for all I know, I love his work. I don't know.
He has good
I haven't seen
qualities,
it.
but he just seemed like a jerk.
Yeah, fuck him then. What a dickhead. Hate him. I hate you. Where the fuck are we in the episode? The villain appears. Count Dooku shows up to the doctor, and he's like, "Yo, I knew you were here the whole time. Also, I'm now wearing this green fucking dressing gown thing for some reason. Don't worry about that. I don't know why I have this on in this scene."
He looks comfortable as fuck, though. That looks comfy.
Yeah,
And I believe it's
he's-
also something he actually had in real life, so he just wore it to set.
amazing. Didn't want to get dressed that day. They get captured and make their way.
But yeah, in this
Or
scene,
rather, they
yeah.
hang on, fuck me.
This
Yeah.
scene is really fun because the doctor has a load of questions for the character, and he can only answer in one-word sentences. It's a funny little scene between the two of them here. He's a funny villain.
He is a funny villain, and Duggan is a menace and just knocks him out. Just
Yeah,
knocks him out immediately.
Because the Count asks why, if he can throw any light on the fact that his professor got beat up. And like Duggan's like, why can't? And he throws the light.
He throws a light at him, and then he just. But it must have been like so ineffective because like in the next shot we don't even see the light, and then he just punches him. So like, why like you just did that for the pun. The doctor chastates Duggan for this, saying, "Why are you such a dickhead?" Anyway, let's go and sneak our way back up through the house and explore around to see what's happening. And oops, fuck. Take over. I've skipped the episode.
We're at like 20 minutes in. We just walk around the house. We see a hand pointing a gun at them from behind a bush. And of course, you know, this scene has Duggan in it. So how is he going to take care of this situation? He picks up a vase and he throws it at the Countess. Like,
Yeah, and it's like a priceless work of art. The doctor's like, "No, cool. Why do you're such a dick? Why do you do this?"
this is like
I don't like Duggan.
this is like the third person he beat up in like last 12 minutes.
He's got one hell of a punch though. He knocks everybody out with one hit. They're down. The doctor then is like, "Okay, we've got to figure out what is going on. Duggan, you need to go off and do something else. And hey, Romana, go with him because I don't trust him to not just knock out everybody he sees on his way there. I'm going to travel back to the Renaissance time to meet up with some turtles." And then the doctor fucks off. But we get a lovely,
he has to break
cameo here.
Do we? Oh yeah, K9. He has to break back into the museum because that's where the TARDIS has landed as a way for them to not have to bring along the TARDIS into France with them. They just have it in. Actually, this is something I forgot to mention. In all of the France scenes, Douglas Adams hadn't finalized the script, so we never mention any character names like Scarleone or any character names like that. So, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, a brief cameo from well, not even a cameo, just a name drop from K9. Who's apparently just sitting at the door waiting for the doctor.
He's just been left in the TARDIS, and the doctor's like, "Oh, what's up, K9? How's it going?" And then he fucks off to the Renaissance times, which is fun. I wasn't expecting. I mean, it's the joys of a time travel show. You know, we started the episode in fucking Squidland, and then we went off to modern day Paris, and now we're off into the Renaissance era, all in the same episodes. And it's fun. I like the set here. It's very messy. There's so much shit everywhere.
It looks like what you'd imagine Leonardo's house to look like, and also the doctor communicates with birds for a little bit. He whistles to them. Which is a lovely little touch.
Then a man with a sword stops him, and he's like, "What the fuck is going on? You're gonna meet the captain dude for breaking in here, you stupid son of a bitch. And by the way, that captain dude can get here instantly. Just in an instant, he can get here." And then the bad guy shows up. Count Dooku's here in the past somehow. He's got long hair now as well, and he recognizes the Doctor, and he's like, "What the fuck is this about, Doctor?" And the Doctor's like, "Oh shit, I don't know what this is about either." And then the episode ends. That's our cliffhanger. The Doctor's kind of, I guess, in mortal danger. It's
Kind
not the
of.
best. It's not the most dangerous cliffhanger we've had.
Yeah, not the most dangerous, but it's like more of a what the hell is going on here kind of question that's been posed. Which, have you any guesses as somebody who's never seen this episode before?
No.
Okay,
I'm going to guess he's traveling through time somehow.
Yeah, that's the least creative answer you could have come up with. But yeah, we'll see next week if you're right or if you're wrong. I can tell you right now you're probably wrong, but
no, I won't find out next week. I want to find out. Keep it a mystery. We'll keep it a mystery. I'll find out next week. But that does take us to the end of part 2 of City of Death. So Scott, what are you feeling right now? What are your thoughts on this story at the midpoint?
My brief thought so far is that them being able to go to Paris is such a breath of fresh air for classic Doctor Who instead of having to film in Britain or a quarry or just along some corridors. And also Douglas Adams is a breath of fresh air for the show, which you can still feel his influence on the show to this day. I would honestly recommend this episode to people who really like comedy episodes because there's a ton of laughs to be had with this episode. It's not one of the best episodes. I don't see why people rate this one so highly, but I would recommend this one. It's a really fun breeze of a time, and we'll be back next week for part 3 and 4. I'm looking forward to it. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's not like the best classic Who story I've ever seen or that we've ever covered on the show, but I was entertained throughout. I really love Tom Baker's performance. I really like Romana as a companion. She's up there right now as one of my favorites from classic Who. Just from this episode alone, I've been very impressed, or these past 2 episodes. I'm interested to see where parts 3 and 4 go, considering you say Duggan becomes insane. So I wasn't expecting this to get wackier, but I guess it might get wackier. So I mean
I'm he's
excited.
already insane. If his insane levels are at like a 8 or a 9 here, I would say it gets to 10 in the next episode. So not too more insane.
Okay,
he is.
That's still pretty insane.
But I dig it. It's fun to have a little parody character. He doesn't really take away from like the danger or anything from the main storyline, so I'm completely fine with his just random parody character. He's fun.
Yeah, no, I really dig it. And other than that, we will be back next week. So if you are watching this on YouTube, I should have said this at the start of the episode. I forgot to do that. It's the new thing I'm trying to do for this year is say all the shit at the start. I forgot to say it. But hey, subscribe to the video if you're watching, to the channel if you're watching this on YouTube here at Who Watches Who. This is where we post all of our podcast shit and other things and stuff, and you can see us in video form. youtube.com/@WhoWatchesWhoPod. Just hit subscribe, hit the like button. It helps out. It's really useful. It's really cool. We're also available in audio form. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. There's an RSS feed, so you can just plug us into any fucking podcast app you want if that's how you like to do things. We are everywhere, and if you are listening to us on audio, please subscribe there, leave a review. It helps boost us through algorithm shit. You can follow the podcast on x.com @WatchesDoctor. You can follow it on Facebook @Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast, I think, or just Who Watches Who. You should be able to find us either way. Other than that, I think that's everything.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. Bye.
Yeah, bye. See you next week with City of Death fucking part 3 and 4. Whoa, bye.